Cool. Hey guys, welcome to Make Anything. I'm Devin, and today I actually wanted to follow up on a project that I started last month during a live stream, and that was this acoustic foam board that's gonna sit behind my computer while I record my voiceovers and help me get a cleaner sound out of my recordings. So like I said, I started this out during the live stream. I figured out the design with you guys. We voted on this really cool waveform pattern, and since then, I finished up printing these connectors that I made so that I could magnetically stick them together, set them up really easily, and also store them away flat. I didn't quite get everything done during the live stream, so today we're gonna summarize what happened and also look at how I finished up this project. And I also had a lot of extra leftover foam, so I ended up doing something larger, which you'll also see in this video. So let's get right to it. So here's how my package arrived in the mail. Surprisingly, they managed to fit 12 large foam panels in this tightly wrapped pack. And this came from Arrowzoom. They sent me these panels specifically to make this video. And while I haven't heard of them before, upon doing my research, it seems like there isn't too much special going on with acoustic foam in general. It's just open cell foam. It's really good at absorbing sound. So I trust that their foam will do the job. Let's take a look at the live stream. And you can see I started out by just having a very general sketch of an idea of what I wanted to do, how I wanted to arrange these panels, and how they would connect together using these little magnetic connections. So I didn't spend too much time working on paper, but instead jumped straight into Fusion 360 and started modeling out a mock-up of the foam panels, as well as the cardboard sheet that would go on the back and hold it down. And then I also went ahead and figured out what the connectors would look like. Here I am designing those connectors, and basically those two circles you see are gonna hold some 6mm little neodymium magnets, and that's what's gonna hold them together. And then those slots you see on the other face are these undercut cavities that are gonna help stick this plastic part onto the cardboard. It's a weird connection of materials, so having those undercut areas will really help hold things together. Of course, I added some chamfers and fillets, and then it was ready to print out. So while that was printing out on this little ZincBot capsule printer, I started assembling the cardboard. I had some old cardboard sheets laying around, and since they weren't the exact correct size, I went ahead and cut them down and glued them together to form these 2-ply squares of cardboard. I used cardboard here because it's a nice simple solution. I'm recycling old cardboard, it's lightweight, and should still be strong enough for the purpose that I'm going to use it. While those were drying, I started doing some thumbnail sketches of different patterns that we could create using the two colors of foam that I got. Since these foam panels are made of small pyramids in an 8x8 square configuration, I figured we could use those kind of like pixels to create some very low resolution art on my panel. So here are the designs that I came up with, and we put those up to vote, and the viewers decided on a waveform pattern, like in design 1 and 4. So from there, I went back into Fusion and just decided to mock up the design in there. That way I had everything figured out before I started cutting up foam, because I definitely didn't want to make any mistakes or waste material. So there were some small adjustments, and eventually we settled on this pattern right here. I think it looks nice and organic, and you can recognize that waveform. It's a pretty cool pattern. So from there, I went ahead and got the actual foam out and started marking the different peaks of this waveform so that I could cut it out all at once. In order to cut this foam, my first idea was to just squash it down with a ruler and then cut it with this Ulfa blade. So I did that for this first small cut, and that worked okay, but when I went to make the second cut, the blade was kind of catching on the foam and not creating a very clean cut. So I opted to instead use scissors, which makes it harder to make a perfectly straight cut, but it also cuts very cleanly in a single pass. It was a bit tricky to maneuver the scissors around the corners and all that, but I managed to do it and get it all done in one piece, and here's what it looked like. So that's one half of a panel, and next I went over to my purple foam and cut out the same pattern so that I could have the second half. Now I can combine the two cutouts and form the single panel. It looked great, so I went ahead and put that on top of my cardboard, which was sized to match the panels, and now I just have to glue it down. Laying down glue here was a really fun and satisfying part, and I just used regular Elmer's school glue here. So some of you might recognize the tacky glue bottle, but I really just filled that bottle with Elmer's glue from a bulk container because it's easier to apply with this little squeeze bottle. So I went ahead and made sure to cover all the edges, as well as get some glue in the middle parts as well. And then I just went ahead and lined it up with my cardboard and gave it a little bit of pressure. I'll do the same thing for the other side and press it into place. And luckily this foam is pretty forgiving, so it kind of squashes together and you can't really see the seams too much. Here I am working on the next panel, and instead of just doing another large piece of black foam, I pieced together some smaller pieces based on the leftover foam from the first panel. That was just my way of making better use of the material I had, and when it's all glued down, the seams are hidden really well anyways, so it worked out. Here are the panels all put together. They looked great, and now it was just a matter of printing out those connectors. So here they are printed out, and you can see they fit together nice and seamless. Then I used some E6000 adhesive to glue my magnets into place. I had to wait a day for the glue to dry, so that was as far as we got during the live stream. And here we are the next day when I was able to finish gluing things together. So to do this, I just oriented the panels the way I wanted them to go together, and then I just covered the connectors with more of that E6000 glue to connect it to the cardboard. And as you can see, I have two of the magnetic connectors stuck together, and I'm going to glue them while they're stuck together in order to have them line up perfectly once I'm using them. To hold this into place, I just used a little piece of cardstock on the foam side, and then I used binder clips to clip it all together. So there it is at the top, and I ended up gluing connectors at the bottom as well so that everything would line up perfectly when I stuck them together. I glued those wherever two panels came together, and then once again I let it dry for another day. Here it is all finished up, and as you can see, it's really just a matter of getting the panels close to each other and the magnets snap into place. It's a super quick assembly, and it works as well as I could have hoped. So there it is, my little acoustic sound booth, and it works just as I intended, and I'm also really glad that I took the time to create this cool pattern. As I mentioned, I got 12 panels of this foam, so I decided to use the remaining foam to create another large panel to go up against my door so that I could block some sound coming from outside. The process was basically the same, just a lot larger. So once again, I glued down smaller sheets of cardboard overlapping to create one large piece. Here I am testing out the size, and it looks great. I just have to mark a cutout for the doorknob, and then I'll start gluing down some foam panels again. So this time, as a kind of challenge to myself and just to see how things would turn out, I decided not to plan things out and instead just improvise a design. So here I am just figuring things out. My general idea was just to have a kind of gradient from the purple foam over to the black foam. So I had these strips of foam that got increasingly smaller, and then I just switched things up and went in a different direction. So it was really just this kind of abstract impromptu design this time, but I'm really happy with how it looks, and I ended up turning it upside down and having it fade from black on the top down to purple at the bottom. I did forget to leave the spot for the doorknob, so I had to go ahead and mark that out, and then I just cut out one of these squares after the fact, using the Olfa cutter again. Now to stick all this foam onto my door, I thought I'd use all these 3M adhesives that came with the foam. While these are just meant to hold foam against the wall without that cardboard backing that I put on it and everything, I figured it could still work since this double-sided 3M adhesive is some really strong stuff. In fact, it was strong enough to peel some paint off of my door. I guess that's just from a previous touch-up I did where I didn't necessarily use primer, and so the paint on my door was kind of just peeling off. That's just my bad, but anyways, this will be covered up, so no big deal. Once I had all that adhesive on there, all I had to do was line up my giant foam panel and then press it into place. Now that I think about it, I probably should have printed some kind of hinge on the top of this panel to just hang it on the door or something like that, but for what it's worth, the adhesive did hold up my giant panel. And here's how it looked in the end. So here's my final door panel, and it's a pretty wild piece, but I'm happy with how it turned out. And it's hard to say exactly how well it works, but when I stand in front of it and talk against it, I can feel the sound being absorbed. So I think it's working as it's supposed to. And yeah, it's an interesting bit of flair for the room. Anyways, that wraps it up for this project. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was certainly different than what I tend to do, but I think it turned out really well. And if you guys liked it enough, let me know. I might look into making one of these with more than 2 colors, maybe getting really crazy with it. If you're doing any kind of sound recording work, whether it's voiceovers or if you're recording music, you should definitely look into these acoustic panels. They give you just that little extra bit of professionalism. I'm always striving to improve myself, so that's why I got these in the first place. So if you think these might be good for you, I'll put a link in the description to Arrowzoom, as well as a discount code so you can get a sweet deal. But that's it for today, so until next time, I'm Devin. This is Make Anything. Don't forget to stay inspired.